After the Newtown Elementary School shooting, a New York Times report found 1,500 new pieces of gun legislation were proposed all across the states, but only 109 of them became law. And of that number, less than 40 made gun policies stricter. Correspondent Sean Callebs joins us now with an update. And Sean, since you filed this report, there have been 2 other mass shootings here in the United States, and it seems as a society we really haven't found a way to address this issue.
Well, certainly through legislation, as you pointed out, it has been extremely difficult, and the states are having more success than the federal government. A couple of major items last year were just simply voted down. There are a couple of things I think that gun rights advocates are pointing at, and that is Mayor Bloomberg. He has been an outspoken opponent of so many guns in the United States, and he is pumping $50 million of his own money into a plan to try and counter all the money that's coming in from other lobbying organizations, chiefly from the National Rifle Association, the NRA. And basically, he says this is a common sense time. This is a time to get out and educate people what's going on. The mass slaughter of people from one end of the country to the other, how long can it go on before people do stand up and say, we need to take some serious action? Now, clearly, those people who support guns hold on to the fact that it is in the Bill of Rights, in the Constitution, and it's going to be very difficult, but money could make a big difference.
Well, you know, every time something like this happens, there's always a lot of conversation, as we've heard. And after Newtown, we even heard from U.S. President Barack Obama. He seemed really determined at the time to pass some legislation there and limit the access to guns. So 2 years later, what happened?
You know, time tends to take the edge off of the emotions that people feel. And right after that, everybody, it seemed in the United States, said something has to be done. It has to be done now. We need firmer background checks. Things like expanded magazines cannot continue. And why does somebody need the kind of gun that we give U.S. troops when they go into battle? Why does a civilian need something like that? So there was popular support after that for a gun control measure that was floating around on Capitol Hill. Went to a vote almost 1 year ago to this day, and it had the support of broad support of people across the country. Some polls indicate 90% of the people in this country wanted that to pass. In the end, it didn't. Why? It's very difficult to say. I can tell you the NRA spent a ton of money and just had their members, 3 to 5 million or 50 million soft members, just inundate their congressmen, their congressional leaders across the country, saying anything that would take away our rights, firmer background checks, expanded magazines, taking away a semi-automatic weapon that I use legally would be an infringement on my right. And where do you draw the line once that happens? And that had a big effect.
Sean, obviously a divisive topic here, but from politicians to regular people, what will it take for U.S. citizens to come to some sort of consensus on this issue?
You know, it's interesting because in talking to this, those who were affected by gun violence, they look at this as the time of our great insanity, that somewhere down the road, we're going to look back 10, 15 years from now and say, why didn't we do more earlier to stem the tide of violence? If you look at tobacco in the United States, 50s and 60s, the commercials, everybody fired up. It was the way to relax, that kind of thing. Then we found out it was killing people with cancer. So then came very, very tight constraints. People got away from it. A lot of people hope it takes that kind of line. But anytime you talk about personal freedom in the United States and talk about any kind of impact on that, it is always a very touchy subject. It's going to take something. What? That's the million-dollar question.
Sean Callebs, thanks for your report and your insights.